Welcome to a chilling behind-the-scenes look at hospice care during the quietest, most vulnerable hours of the night. This is a time when the world outside slows down, but inside these peaceful rooms, strange and powerful moments often unfold. Tonight, I'll be sharing 10 true and deeply personal stories from 7 nurses and doctors who have worked on the front lines of end-of-life care. These professionals have witnessed things that defy explanation. Moments that were emotional, mysterious, and sometimes even otherworldly. These stories are not just about strange occurrences. They are about love, loss, peace, and the thin line between this world and the next. From whispered goodbyes to unexplainable shadows, and from sudden temperature drops to quiet smiles from patients who just passed, each experience carries a message that stays with those who witnessed it. Whether you're a caregiver yourself, someone who has lost a loved one, or just someone drawn to true stories from real people, this video will give you a deep and unforgettable look into what really happens after midnight in hospice. These are the moments no one talks about, but the ones that stay with you forever. So settle in, stay with me until the end, and let's step into the quiet, powerful world of after midnight in hospice, shocking true stories from nurses and doctors. Story 1. Nurse Clara's silent room. Nurse Clara has been working in hospice care for over a decade. She's known among her colleagues for her calm presence and deep compassion when supporting patients and their families through their final moments. One night, during her usual overnight shift, Clara was doing a routine check at 2 a.m. She entered the room of a patient who had peacefully passed away just a few hours earlier. As Clara approached the bedside to confirm the patient's condition and complete her notes, she suddenly noticed the temperature in the room drop sharply, making her shiver. At the same time, she distinctly heard the sound of gentle breathing, even though the heart monitor clearly showed a flat line, indicating no life signs. Despite the stillness all around her, Clara's eyes caught the patient's chest rising once in a slow, steady breath. A soft, almost whisper-like sigh seemed to escape the room. Feeling a mixture of awe and unease, Clara instinctively stepped back. Just then, the overhead lights flickered briefly, adding to the eerie atmosphere. She paused for a moment, frozen in place, before calling the on-call doctor to come and check the situation. By the time the doctor arrived, the room had returned to normal. The monitors showed no signs of life, no breaths, and no movement. Clara and the doctor exchanged puzzled looks but didn't find any logical explanation. Even now, months later, Clara reflects on that night often. She wonders quietly if what she experienced was a final message from the patient. A last breath, a sign of peace, or a moment when the soul lingered just a little longer before moving on. It's a memory that stays with her, reminding her that in hospice care, the boundary between life and death can sometimes feel more fragile and mysterious than we imagine. Story 2. Dr. Malik's mirror encounter. Dr. Malik is an experienced hospice physician who has spent years caring for patients in their final moments. One quiet night during his regular rounds, he stopped by the nurses' station to check on the latest updates. As he glanced at the large mirror behind the desk, something caught his eye. A faint silhouette appeared in the reflection. At first, he thought it was one of the nurses or staff walking behind him, but when he turned around, the hallway was completely empty. The figure in the mirror was clearly there, yet no one was visible in the corridor. The silhouette seemed to meet his gaze, almost as if acknowledging him, before slowly fading away. Confused, Dr. Malik decided to review the security camera footage from that night. To his surprise, no one had passed through the area at all. No movement, no footsteps, just silence. Later, when he mentioned the incident to a colleague, he learned that the mirror at the nurse's station reflected a room where a beloved patient had peacefully passed away only a week earlier. This experience left Dr. Malik with a deep sense of connection and wonder. Was it a lingering presence, a final farewell from someone who had been cared for with compassion? For him, that night remains a haunting reminder that even in places of sorrow, moments of mystery and grace quietly unfold. Story 3. Nurse Beatriz's phantom footsteps. Nurse Beatriz has been working in hospice care for over 10 years. She's known among her colleagues for her calm and compassionate nature, especially during the long, quiet night shifts when things can feel both peaceful and eerie. One night, around 3 a.m., while doing her usual rounds, Beatriz suddenly heard footsteps softly pacing up and down the hallway outside one of the patient rooms. Curious but cautious, she quietly followed the sound. The footsteps moved steadily, then stopped right outside a closed door. For a moment, the pacing seemed to pause, and then, unexpectedly, the footsteps appeared to turn in her direction, as if someone was listening or aware of her presence. Beatriz gently called out to the patient inside, hoping to offer comfort or assistance if needed. She was relieved to hear a soft, even breathing. The patient was peacefully asleep. When she opened the door to check, the hallway was completely empty, with no sign of anyone or anything that could have made those footsteps. Later, after her shift ended, Beatriz reviewed the patient's records and discovered something chilling. The patient had passed away at exactly the same time she'd heard the footsteps. The pacing sound, the silent presence, it felt like a final walk, a lingering spirit moving through the hall before fully leaving this world. This experience stayed with Beatriz, reminding her that sometimes, in hospice care, there's more than meets the eye during those quiet, lonely hours after midnight. Story 4. Dr. Chen's Whispered Prayers. Dr. Chen is a seasoned hospice physician with over 15 years of experience caring for patients in their final days. Known for his calm demeanor and deep compassion, he often works the late-night shifts when the hospital is at its quietest. One night, during a particularly peaceful shift, Dr. Chen was making his rounds when he suddenly heard soft, whispered prayers coming from one of the patient rooms. What made it unusual was that the room had no visitors. Nobody was inside except the patient and the staff. Curious and a little unsettled, Dr. Chen gently peeked through the partially open door. The dim overhead lights flickered briefly, casting long shadows across the room. Inside lay the patient, a man in a deep coma, completely still and unresponsive. Despite this, the whispered prayers continued softly but mysteriously. Dr. Chen, moved by the quiet presence, whispered a prayer himself. Almost immediately, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The air felt warmer, and a sense of calm washed over the space. Then, as suddenly as it started, the whispered voice faded away. Dr. Chen couldn't explain what he had heard. He later reflected that maybe someone unseen, whether a spiritual presence, an angel, or a loved one from beyond, was offering comfort to the patient during those final hours. That night stayed with him, a reminder that sometimes healing and peace reach beyond what we can see or hear. Story 5. Nurse Aishas' Flickering Lamp. Nurse Aisha has been working in hospice care for over 8 years. She is known among her colleagues for her calm presence and deep compassion for her patients, especially during those quiet night shifts when emotions run deep and unexpected moments can happen. One particular night stays with her to this day. While charting notes in a patient's room around midnight, Aisha noticed the bedside lamp flickering on and off repeatedly. At first, she thought it was just a loose bulb or a faulty switch. She reached over and tested the lamp's switch. It worked perfectly fine. But then, without her touching it again, the light suddenly flashed once more, bright and clear. Curious and slightly unsettled, Aisha glanced at the patient. He was resting peacefully, eyes closed and breathing steady. The room was silent, except for the gentle hum of medical equipment. She stayed for a while, watching the lamp flicker quietly in the dim room. About an hour later, the patient slowly opened his eyes. He reached out and gently took Aisha's hand. With a soft voice, he whispered a heartfelt thank you. That moment felt profound, like a final connection beyond words. As dawn approached, the patient passed away peacefully. Nurse Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that the flickering lamp was more than a mechanical glitch. To her, it symbolized the patient's spirit gently moving on, finding peace in the quiet hours of the night. That simple light became a sign of hope and comfort during one of life's most difficult moments. Story 6. Dr. Ortiz's voice on the pager. Dr. Carlos Ortiz is a seasoned physician who has spent over a decade working in hospice care. Known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts, he's seen many patients through their final journeys. But there was one night that left him questioning everything he thought he knew. It was a quiet night shift when Dr. Ortiz's emergency pager suddenly buzzed, interrupting the stillness. The message was clear and urgent. Code blue. Clear breathing required in room 12. Without hesitation, he rushed down the dimly lit hallway, prepared to respond to a medical emergency. When he arrived at room 12, he found the patient peacefully asleep, with steady, calm breathing. The monitors showed no distress, and there was no sign of any emergency. Confused, Dr. Ortiz checked his pager's logs for any record of the alert. It showed nothing. Puzzled, he asked the nursing staff and other doctors on duty if anyone had called a code. Everyone confirmed they had not. The message seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. This strange event stuck with Dr. Ortiz long after his shift ended. Knowing the patient had passed peacefully only hours later, he suspects that the alert was not from any living source. Instead, he believes it was a message from beyond, a final call from a spirit still lingering, trying to communicate in the only way it could. For Dr. Ortiz, that night was a powerful reminder that in hospice, the boundary between life and death can sometimes feel thin and mysterious. Story 7. Nurse Elena's Cold Touch. Nurse Elena has worked in hospice care for over 8 years. She is known among her colleagues for her calm demeanor and deep compassion for her patients, especially during those quiet night shifts when emotions run high and the atmosphere feels heavy. One particular night, Elena was making her rounds to check on an elderly patient who was nearing the end of his journey. As she gently adjusted his blanket, she suddenly felt a cold, almost icy hand brush lightly against her shoulder. Startled, Elena quickly turned around, but no one was there. The room's temperature seemed to drop noticeably, sending a chill through her body. The coldness hung in the air for a few seconds before it slowly faded away, replaced by a comforting warmth that filled the space again. Despite the eerie sensation, Elena didn't feel fear, more like a quiet presence watching over her and the patient. Later, during a rare moment when the patient was awake and lucid, he confided in Elena that he had felt someone near him just before drifting off to sleep. That calm presence seemed to bring him peace. Reflecting on the experience, Elena believes that the cold touch was not a random chill, but a gentle sign from something beyond, a comforting spirit or guardian accompanying her patient in those final moments. This encounter has stayed with her ever since, reminding her that there's more to hospice care than meets the eye. Story 8. Nurse Marco's Curtain Movement. Nurse Marco is a seasoned hospice nurse with over 10 years of experience caring for patients in their final days. He's known among his colleagues for his calm demeanor and sharp attention to detail, especially during night shifts when the hospital feels the quietest and most still. One night during his routine rounds, Marco was attending to a patient recovering from a stroke. As he checked the monitors and adjusted the IV, he noticed something unusual. The privacy curtain beside the patient's bed was gently swaying, as if someone had just brushed past it. Curious, Marco glanced down the hallway. It was empty. The only light came from a single window at the far end, where the moon cast a soft glow, but there was no breeze or movement that could explain the curtain's motion. Thinking it might have been a draft, Marco closed the curtain firmly and stepped back to continue his work. But just moments later, the curtain began to move again, shifting slowly, as if someone was standing just behind it, watching. The sensation sent a chill through him. But he stayed composed. The next morning, when he checked on the patient, she shared a surprising story. She said she had seen a figure standing silently by her bed the entire night, a calm presence with a gentle smile. The patient said the figure felt comforting, as if a loved one had come to say goodbye. Marco has often thought about that night, wondering if what he saw was more than just a trick of the light. For him, it was a quiet reminder that sometimes the spirits of those we love don't truly leave us. They stay close, especially when it matters most. Story 9. Dr. Stevens' Singing in the Dark. Dr. Michael Stevens is a seasoned hospice physician known for his calm presence during the most difficult moments of his patients' final days. One early morning, while reviewing patient charts in the dimly lit hallway, Dr. Stevens heard something unusual. Soft, faint singing drifting through the still air. It wasn't just a single voice, but sounded like a small choir, gently singing a familiar hymn. There were no speakers playing music, and no visitors or staff were around. Curious and a little unsettled, Dr. Stevens stepped into the hallway and walked toward the sound, but the area was completely empty. The singing continued for a few moments longer, then gradually faded away into silence. Later that day, he found out that a patient who had a deep love for that very hymn had passed away quietly just before the time he heard the singing. To Dr. Stevens, it felt like a final farewell, a peaceful send-off from beyond, an unexplainable moment of comfort and connection that stayed with him long after. Story 10. Nurse Sophie's Final Expression. Nurse Sophie has been working in hospice care for over a decade. Known for her gentle nature and deep compassion, she has cared for countless patients in their final moments. One quiet night, Sophie entered the room of Mr. James, an elderly man battling a long illness. Earlier that evening, he had peacefully passed away, and Sophie went in to prepare him for his family's visit the next day. As she approached his bedside, Sophie noticed something unusual. Instead of the usual stillness or tension often seen after death, Mr. James's face held a peaceful, almost radiant smile. There was a calmness about him that Sophie couldn't explain, a soft serenity that felt different from anything she had seen before. It was as if his spirit had finally found rest, free from pain and worry. Moved by the moment, and knowing his daughter would want to see her father one last time, Sophie asked for the family's permission to take a photo. When she looked at the image later, she noticed a faint, gentle glow surrounding Mr. James's form. None of the other staff or family members saw this glow. Only Sophie did. In that silent, still room, Sophie felt certain that Mr. James had found peace. His final expression was a sign of release, a goodbye that needed no words. For Sophie, this moment was a powerful reminder of the quiet miracles that happen after midnight in hospice, where life and spirit meet in the most profound ways. Let's take a moment to reflect on the stories shared tonight, told by 7 dedicated hospice nurses and doctors who have spent countless nights caring for patients during their most fragile moments. These professionals, people like Nurse Clara, Nurse Beatriz, Dr. Malik, and others have opened a window into a world few get to see. Their stories show us that midnight in hospice isn't just about medical care or quiet watchfulness. It's often a time filled with strange, spiritual, and deeply touching experiences that go beyond what we can easily explain. Whether you approach these stories with skepticism or an open heart, one thing is clear: healing isn't just physical. It touches the soul, and sometimes the quiet hours after midnight carry messages, signs, or moments of peace that remind us how mysterious life and death truly are. These stories give voice to the unseen and invite us to consider the unknown aspects of the human experience. If any of these true accounts moved you, surprised you, or made you think, I encourage you to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell me which story resonated with you the most. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories and insights straight from the front lines of care. Your support helps bring these important voices and experiences to light. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the quiet, powerful moments that happen after midnight in hospice.